At 20,000 feet in the air, Andrew Callahan thought he was in control of his company, his time, his life. But then came a conversation with a stranger that cracked everything wide open. One flight, one question, and suddenly, this high-powered CEO was forced to confront the one thing he'd been avoiding for years, his own daughter's quiet heartbreak. What happened next changed everything. Andrew Callahan thought he had mastered the art of control. At 41, he was the CEO of a rapidly growing tech company. His schedule was planned down to the minute, his emotions hidden behind a calm, professional exterior. His 10-year-old daughter, Daisy, was raised with the same precision he applied to his boardroom strategies. But Flight 447 from San Francisco to New York was about to teach Andrew that some connections can't be controlled, some healing can't be scheduled, and sometimes the weakness you're running from is exactly what your heart needs most. Gate 23 was noisy as usual at the airport while Andrew kept checking his phone. Flight 447 to JFK, now boarding. Next to him, Daisy bounced with the energy of a 10-year-old, her purple backpack swinging. "Dad, can we sit by the window? I want to watch the clouds." Her eyes sparkled with excitement. Andrew had forgotten how to feel. We were assigned seats 4A and 4B. Daisy's window seat was taken. His voice carried the tightly controlled tone of a boardroom. Calm, firm, no room for negotiation. But Daisy wasn't a business rival. She still believed her dad could fix everything. You always say you can solve any problem. Can't you solve this one? That question cracked something inside Andrew's chest. Looking down at his daughter, he saw her trying her hardest to be perfect, just like he was trying to be the perfect dad. The truth was, neither of them felt happy. "I'll see what I can do," he whispered, surprising even himself. As they boarded, Andrew automatically cataloged the people around him like market data. In seat 3C, Zoe Carter, in her early 30s, with paint-stained fingers, was sketching in a worn leather notebook. Her movements showed the confidence of someone who communicates through images rather than words. There was something cautious, but not bitter in her posture that made Andrew glance twice before looking away. Harold Morton, 72, carefully settled into his seat with the deliberate movements of someone who values every action. The retired carpenter smiled warmly at Daisy, the kind of grandfather smile even Andrew's own father never showed. Rick Ditt, in 2A, loudly complained over Bluetooth about delays and poor service. Everything about him radiated success and pride. He was the kind of man Andrew feared he might become. "Dad, look, that girl is drawing an airplane." Daisy whispered and pointed at Zoe. "Don't stare." "Daisy," Andrew said automatically, even though his eyes lingered on the sketch, capturing not just the physical space but the emotional texture of the moment. During takeoff, Andrew opened his laptop to review his presentation. Technology and emotional intelligence prepare young people for success. He didn't miss the irony of it all, teaching teenagers about emotions while carefully keeping his own daughter at arm's length. Daisy pressed her face against the window as San Francisco disappeared below. "Do you think Mom can see us from heaven when we're this high up?" The question hit him like a punch. 5 years since Sarah passed, and he still didn't know how to handle moments like this. In business, he could solve any problem, but when it came to grief, his own or his daughter's, he was completely lost. "Your mom would want you to focus on the adventure. Straight ahead," he said, the words feeling hollow. Daisy nodded. Seriously, as if she'd learned not to expect a real answer. That truth twisted Andrew's chest. He'd spent 5 years protecting her from pain by teaching her to shut off her emotions completely. But looking at her now, calm and mature beyond her years, he wondered if he'd really taught her to be as emotionally isolated as he was. Sometimes the walls we build to protect ourselves end up blocking the very connections we desperately seek. And sometimes it takes a complete stranger to show us that the armor we wear is really a prison we've locked ourselves inside. After 20 minutes of flying, the plane hit turbulence. Daisy was coloring when the plane jolted, sending Rick Ditt's coffee spilling straight onto his laptop. The silence was deafening. Rick's face shifted from red to a dangerous dark red. "Are you kidding me? Do you know how much this laptop costs? What kind of job am I going to lose now?" Daisy's coloring book dropped, her eyes wide with fear. "I'm really sorry, sir." "The plane." I don't care about the plane. Rick's voice rose, shaking with rage. Where are your parents? What kind of person lets their kid wreck someone else's stuff? I'm here. Andrew's voice was controlled, but there was a dangerous glint in his eyes. And my daughter didn't destroy anything. That was chaos. Rick unleashed his anger on Andrew. Great. A dad who wraps his little princess in bubble wrap thinking she can do no wrong. Let me guess you're going to tell me it was an accident. Right, kids will be kids. Just then, Andrew stood up. The shift was striking. This was Andrew Callahan, CEO, the man who had fought off hostile takeovers. Here was a father watching a grown man terrorize his 10-year-old daughter. You know what? Andrew's calm voice was scarier than any shout. You're right. Kids will be kids, but adults have to act like adults. The entire cabin was watching. My daughter is 10. She apologized immediately, something most grown men can't do. How old are you? 45, and you think yelling at a child over an accident is appropriate, Rick stammered. You don't understand. I have important work that involves terrorizing children. Andrew's laugh held no humor. Let me tell you what's important. Teaching my daughter that when someone makes a mistake, you respond with kindness, not cruelty, showing her that real strength means protecting those smaller than you. The cabin went silent except for the engine's roar. But if your job is so important that spilled coffee can ruin it, Andrew added, sitting down and pulling Daisy close protectively. Maybe you should invest in better backup systems. Zoe broke the tension. She'd watched the whole exchange with the focused attention of an artist, seeing human tragedy as both art and truth. Quietly, she stepped to Rick's seat and started wiping the coffee with napkins gathered from nearby passengers. Accidents happen, she said simply, her voice warm, filling the angry space. Sometimes they lead to conversations we didn't know we needed. Rick looked skeptical, as if kindness was alien. You don't even know me. No, Zoe, she agreed as she kept cleaning. But I know what it feels like to be so angry at the world you forget there are still good people out there. I know what it's like to focus on your own pain so much that you hurt others. There was something in her voice, a knowing born from experience, not theory, that made Rick actually listen. Zoe continued, sometimes the angriest people are the ones who have been hurt the most. She handed back the napkins and stopped at Daisy's seat. That coloring is beautiful. Want me to show you how to make the clouds look more real? Daisy's face lit up. You're an artist. I try. I paint portraits. I like capturing the stories people's faces tell. What story is my face telling? Daisy asked, curious and unafraid. Zoe watched her carefully. Your face tells a story of deep love and a wish for everyone's happiness, but also of someone who's learned to be cautious with joy, as if you're afraid it might slip away. Her observation was so spot on that Andrew held his breath. This stranger saw in a few minutes what he hadn't noticed in all these years. What happened next was pure magic. Zoe moved to the empty chair across the aisle and began sketching Daisy with confident strokes. This was more than just skill. This was soul-seeing. As she drew, she talked about art, about different ways of looking, about finding beauty in unexpected places. She discussed color and light, as well as feelings and dreams, and how sadness and joy can live side by side. Daisy was enchanted. Andrew was too. Even Harold Morton put down his newspaper to watch. Zoe explained that the hardest part of drawing a person is not just capturing their appearance, but also their emotions. The wrinkles around your eyes aren't from age. They come from smiling, but also from trying not to cry. Your face tells me you've learned to be strong, even stronger than you should have to be. Andrew felt something crack inside his chest. He wanted Zoe to stop seeing so much, to stop saying what he'd been avoiding for 5 years. But he also desperately wanted her to keep helping him understand his daughter. My dad says crying doesn't solve anything, Daisy whispered. Zoe's hand paused. What do you think Daisy thought seriously? I think maybe crying doesn't fix things, but it helps you remember what's broken so you can try to fix it later. That wisdom hit Andrew like a punch. His 10-year-old son understood emotional intelligence better than he did. She knew that admitting pain was the first step to healing. While he taught her to avoid pain altogether, that's very wise. Zoe said softly, "Can I share a secret with you?" Some of the most beautiful art comes from broken places. The Japanese have kintsugi. They use gold to repair broken pottery, turning the cracks into the most beautiful parts. So, breaking can actually make you more beautiful. Zoe gently corrected herself. Breaking and choosing to heal can make you more beautiful, but you have to let people see the cracks so they can fill them with gold. Andrew's throat tightened. He had spent 5 years hiding his pain from Daisy, thinking he was protecting her. But what if he was also teaching her to hide it? Harold Morton spoke up from across the aisle. You know, I raised 4 kids after my wife passed. I tried everything being both mom and dad. I think if I'm strong enough, in control enough, they won't feel the loss. Andrew was surprised by this unexpected insight. Harold continued, It took me years to realize that by not letting them see me grieve, I was teaching them that their grief was something to be ashamed of. Kids learn more from what we do than from what we say. If we don't show them how to mourn, how can we expect them to learn how to heal? Those words were a challenge Andrew wasn't ready to accept. How old were your kids when your wife passed? The youngest was 8, the oldest 15. Harold's eyes grew distant. The 8-year-old asked why I never cried. That made her feel maybe mom wasn't worth crying for. Andrew felt like he'd been punched in the gut. What did you say to her? It took me 2 years to figure out how to talk to her. Finally, I told her the truth. I cried every night after she went to bed because I didn't want her to see me break down. I was so scared that I wasn't strong enough. I forgot to show her that it's okay not to be strong all the time. Then Harold smiled, lighting up his sun-weathered face. After that, we cried together. You know what? The sky didn't fall. We just remembered Mom when we were together, instead of alone. What Andrew didn't know was that across the aisle, an artist's eyes were looking right through the walls he had carefully built over 5 years. What he couldn't have predicted was that his perfectly controlled world was about to collide with raw, unfiltered truth in the most unexpected way. Just as Andrew was processing Harold's words, disaster struck. The chaos caused his briefcase to spill open in the aisle, business cards scattering everywhere. Zoe helped gather them up. That's when she saw it. Andrew Callahan, Chief Executive Officer, Callahan Industries. Her face quickly changed color. Andrew knew something was wrong. Callahan Industries. She whispered, You're a CEO. Yes. Is there a problem? Zoe's hands trembled as she stared at the card. 5 years ago, a drunk driver who was an executive killed my brother. He was 23, walking home from his job at an art supply store because he couldn't afford a car. The house fell silent, heavy with pain and misunderstanding. That executive only got a minimal security sentence of 6 months. Zoe continued, her voice trembling with anger. 6 months in jail for ending a life full of potential, for destroying my family. Do you want to know why I paint portraits? Because it's the only way I can remember my brother's face without seeing it covered in blood. Andrew felt the world tilt beneath him. Zoe, I don't. Everyone's the same. She exploded, standing up so fast she dropped her sketchbook. Rich, powerful men think money can get them out of consequences. Who thinks success gives them the right to destroy lives without thinking I've never driven drunk? Andrew said firmly, but gently, I've never hurt anyone behind the wheel. I'm not the one who killed your brother. But you could be. Zoe's voice cracked with pain. Don't you see? You sit there in that perfect suit, completely controlled, talking about emotional intelligence, but you can't even show your daughter that feeling something is actually normal. You're too scared to be human. You forgot how to be a person. That accusation hit harder than any business attack, because unlike Rick's coffee rage, this wasn't anger. This was soul-crushing pain Andrew recognized in himself. You're right, he whispered. Zoe stopped mid-sentence, not expecting agreement. You're right. I'm scared to be human. I'm scared to feel things I can't control, fix, or solve. I've spent 5 years teaching my daughter that emotions are problems to manage instead of experiences to live. He looked at Daisy with wide, fearful eyes. I lost my wife 5 years ago too, not because of a drunk driver, but cancer. But either way, I lost her. Instead of teaching my daughter how to grieve, to remember, and to honor our love, I taught her to avoid feelings. Zoe fell back, her fight suddenly drained as quickly as it had come. I'm not the one who killed your brother, Andrew said softly. But you're right, I could be. Because I've spent so much time running from pain. I forgot how to run toward anything else, including my daughter. The confrontation shattered what Andrew had kept locked away for 5 years. As Zoe sat crying and Daisy watched, confused and scared, Andrew felt something he hadn't allowed himself since Sarah's funeral. Completely lost. Dad. Daisy's soft voice cut through his chaotic thoughts. Are you okay? Such a simple question. Something so normal for a child to ask. But Andrew couldn't remember the last time someone cared about his feelings and actually wanted an honest answer. No, sweetheart, he heard himself say. I'm not okay. That confession felt like a foreign language he was learning. Was it because of what the artist said Andrew looked at his daughter? Really looked, and saw not just intelligence and kindness, but wisdom born from watching her dad pretend he was okay, while inside she was falling apart. Because I've pretended to be okay for so long. I forgot that. Sometimes, it's okay to be okay. Daisy nodded seriously, like how I pretended not to be afraid of storms so you wouldn't have to worry. That comparison was unexpected. You're afraid of storms. Since Mom passed away, she used to hold me through storms and tell me stories that thunder was angels playing bowling in heaven. But you just told me storms are a natural weather phenomenon, and there's nothing to be afraid of if you understand the science. Andrew felt like he was seeing his daughter clearly for the first time in years. I didn't know you were still scared. I'm not. I don't want you to think I'm stupid. You always say emotions aren't facts and fear is irrational. Oh, sweetheart, Andrew whispered, pulling her close. Emotions aren't facts, but they're still real. Being afraid doesn't make you stupid. It makes you more human. Across the aisle, Zoe watched her father and daughter embrace, and something in her heart began to crack. She had spent 5 years hating executives, hating anyone who reminded her of the man who destroyed her family. But seeing Andrew hold his daughter, seeing his regret and sincere admission, she began to see him not as a symbol of everything she hated, but as someone carrying deep wounds. But what was about to happen next would shatter everything. Andrew thought he understood control, success, and what true strength really meant. Because sometimes the moment you think you understand someone is the moment you realize you understand nothing at all. The plane landed on schedule, but Andrew's carefully planned presentation was about to completely derail. 3 hours later, sitting in the hotel ballroom in front of 500 educators, parents, and teens, Andrew realized he couldn't deliver the speech he had prepared about technology and emotional intelligence. The PowerPoint behind him lit up, filled with statistics and teaching strategies about managing emotions. Every study had a foundation. Every piece of advice was practical. Every recommendation was evidence-based, but it all felt like lies. Good evening. I'm Andrew Callahan, and I was assigned to talk to you tonight about emotional intelligence. The audience expected the company's usual important speech. But today, I realized maybe I'm the last person who should be teaching anyone about emotional intelligence. Because for the past 5 years, I've been teaching my 10-year-old daughter that emotions are problems to solve, not experiences to live through. Whispers spread throughout the room. This wasn't the speech they expected. I lost my wife 5 years ago. Instead of teaching my daughter how to grieve, how to remember, how to honor our love, I taught her to avoid emotions altogether. I taught her that being strong means never crying, that being smart means controlling your emotions, that success means never letting anyone see you weak. The whole ballroom went silent. Today, on a 6-hour flight, I learned more about emotional intelligence from strangers than I did in 5 years trying to be the perfect dad. I learned from an artist who showed my daughter that broken places can be filled with gold, from a grandfather who taught me that kids learn more from what we do than what we say, from my own daughter, who pretended not to be afraid of storms because she didn't want to disappoint me. Andrew's voice cracked, but he didn't hide it. I came here to teach you about emotional intelligence, but what I really need is your help. Because I don't know how to teach kids to be emotionally smart when I'm still learning to be emotionally honest myself. I don't know how to tell teenagers that feeling deeply is normal when I taught my own daughter to feel carefully. He paused, looking out at the sea of faces. So, instead of strategies and statistics, I want to ask, how can we teach young people that weakness is strength when we're afraid to be weak? How can we tell our kids it's okay not to have an answer when we're afraid of fear, to admit that we're lost? What happened next surprised everyone. Instead of polite applause, all across the room, hands went up not to ask questions, but to share stories. A teacher from Detroit talked about crying with her students during tough discussions, turning her classroom into a real learning space. A father from Phoenix shared that admitting his own anxieties to his teenage son opened up conversations they never had before. A local teen spoke about how adults focus too much on teaching success and forget to teach happiness. One by one, people shared stories of weakness, emotional honesty, and how admitting their vulnerabilities made them stronger. Andrew found himself crying, unable to hold back not private tears, but sincere ones he didn't try to hide. As he shared, he said, "This is emotional intelligence, not controlling your emotions, but having the courage to fully feel them and share honestly, not the strength to never break, but the wisdom to know that sometimes breaking is the only way for the light to come in." The warm applause lasted for 10 minutes. After the conference, Andrew didn't go back to his hotel room to prepare for meetings. Instead, he found himself in the lobby at midnight, calling the phone number Zoe had given Daisy on a card. "Hello." Her voice was cautious. "Zoe, this is Andrew. I know it's late, but I need to tell you something." Pause. "Okay, you were right about everything. About me being afraid to be human, about teaching my daughter to avoid emotions, about people like me causing damage without realizing it. Andrew, I also want to tell you that your brother's death wasn't meaningless because of your anger, your pain, and your willingness to call my name. Something changed tonight. I spoke to 500 people, and instead of teaching them to control their emotions, I asked for their help to learn how to feel. You can hear her breathing. I can't bring your brother back, and I can't fix the damage the driver caused, but I can promise to spend my whole life trying to become the man your brother would be proud to know, the father my daughter deserves, the man my wife married before I forgot how to be human." As Zoe spoke, her voice choked with tears. "He would like you, brother. He'd like the man you're trying to become." 3 months later, Daisy attended an art class on Saturday with Zoe at her studio in Brooklyn. Andrew had rearranged his entire schedule to take her, not because he had to, but because he wanted to. He had learned that being present matters more than being productive. "Remember our talk on the plane about Kanugi?" Zoe asked as Daisy was painting a portrait of her dad, about how to turn broken places into something beautiful with gold. Daisy nodded, sticking out her tongue in concentration as she captured the laugh lines around Andrew's eyes, lines that had become much more visible in recent months. "I think people can be like that too," Daisy said thoughtfully, "like how Dad broke when Mom died, but now he's filling those gaps with truth. He tells me when he's sad and scared, and when he misses Mom. Somehow, that makes the sad moments less scary." Andrew felt his chest tighten with love. "You know what else you also taught me about Kanugi?" "I did. You showed me that where I open up is where love appears. When I stopped trying to be perfect, I started living honestly." "And living honestly is so much better than being perfect." Zoe smiled, remembering the tense, quiet man on the plane. That man was still there, but he had changed because he wanted to break, to open up so people could see his wounds, so his daughter could teach him how to heal. "Can I show you something?" she asked, reaching for the tarp covering something. She revealed a portrait of a young man with kind eyes and a gentle smile. Her brother. "I finished it last week. For the first time in 5 years, I can remember his smile without seeing anything else. I can remember his laugh, his terrible jokes, the way he painted my nails in weird colors just to make me happy. He looks amazing." Andrew said softly, "He did that. And you know what? I think he'd be proud of all of us. While you learn to accept weakness, Jav Daisy teaches you how to heal, about how I learned to forgive." That night, Andrew and Daisy first expressed their feelings over dinner. It became their tradition, every night sharing one happy thing and one sad, fearful, or worrying thing. "I'm happy because today I learned how to paint clouds," Daisy said, twirling her pasta. "I'm sad because I miss Mom and wish she could see my pictures." Andrew said, "I'm happy to see you learning something new." And I'm sad realizing how much time I wasted being scared of my feelings instead of sharing them with you. Dad, yes. Honey, do you think Mom would be proud that we're learning to talk about missing her? Andrew felt tears well up, but didn't hide them. I think Mom would be so proud that we're learning to love her memory by being honest about the pain of losing her and learning to love each other more, especially that night when a storm hit New York. Andrew didn't explain the weather. Instead, he held Daisy close and told stories about thunder being angels in heaven, just like Sarah used to do. When Daisy asked if being scared sometimes was okay, Andrew told her the truth. Feeling scared just means you're paying attention to something important, and you are more important to me than anything else in this world. So if you're scared, we'll be scared together. If you're brave, we'll be brave together, but we'll always be there for each other. 1 year later, Andrew stood at Zoe's Soho Gallery for the opening of Flight 47, a love story in 5 acts. The exhibit told their whole story through portraits that captured not just their looks, but their emotions too. The first painting showed Andrew stressed and Daisy trying to look perfect. Zoe closed in on the patient, Harold Rick aggressively. Everyone was isolated in their pain. The second scene showed Andrew facing Rick, his protective father, breaking through the shell of a CEO. The third painting showed Zoe painting Daisy while Harold shared his wisdom. Strangers began to see each other clearly. This C is the strongest C. Andrew's face as Zoe revealed about her brother. You can see the exact moment when defense turns into empathy as he stops seeing the attacker and starts seeing someone else who is hurt. The final painting shows their image after 6 months. Andrew smiles at Daisy while Zoe teaches them how to paint. Harold joins the Sunday lunch. Even Rick helps with homework. A chosen family born from the willingness to accept vulnerability in front of strangers. But the most striking painting is one Zoe has never displayed before. The image depicts Andrew admitting to Daisy for the first time that he's not okay. In Zoe's interpretation, golden light flows between father and daughter, healing invisible cracks that kept them apart. Kanugi reads the sign, The Art of Beautiful Brokenness. As visitors walk through the gallery on opening night, something remarkable happens. Strangers start talking about the paintings, sharing their own stories of unexpected connections, life-changing flights, moments when weakness turned into strength. Andrew watches a businesswoman and a college student discuss Harold's intellectual painting. He sees a father and his teenage son standing before Daisy's first art class, whispering about the struggles of communication. Look how you started. Zoe whispers, how we started. Andrew corrects, by having the courage to let strangers see where we're broken. Daisy appears with her sketchbook. At 13, she's inherited both her mother's emotional intelligence and Zoe's artistic eye. But more than that, she's learned from her father's journey that strength doesn't come from never falling, but from getting up and helping others do the same. I want to paint everyone here tonight, she declares, pointing around the room. Look at them. They're doing exactly what we did on the plane to let art help them connect with strangers, share stories, and discover they're not as alone as they thought. Andrew looks around with fresh eyes and sees she's right. The paintings have become a catalyst for the same connection that happened on Flight 447. Strangers have become friends. Stories have been shared. People have realized their struggles are threads that can weave them together instead of walls that separate them. Every day is Flight 447, he murmurs. And everyone is a potential portrait, Zoe adds. And every conversation is a chance to help someone feel less alone, Daisy finishes. As the night ends and the last guests leave, Andrew, Zoe, and Daisy stand before the final painting, their chosen family sitting around the dinner table, all smiling, all whole, not in spite of their brokenness, but because they were willing to let those broken places be seen and healed. You know what I've learned from all this, Andrew finally says. What's that? Zoe asks. Sometimes the most important journey happens between strangers who decide to stop being strangers. Sometimes the greatest adventure isn't traveling somewhere new, but discovering who you really are when you stop trying to be who you think you're supposed to be. He pauses, looking at his daughter and wife, admiring the paintings, telling stories of connection and healing all around them. Sometimes the most amazing thing that can happen is that the life you've tightly controlled gets completely broken by people who see through your defenses and still love you. And sometimes, Zoe smiles and adds, the most beautiful art comes from the willingness to paint your true colors, even when you're afraid people won't like what they see. And sometimes, Daisy said with wisdom beyond her years, the best family is the family you choose, made up of people brave enough to say goodbye together and strong enough to heal together. When they turn off the gallery lights and step into the New York night, Andrew feels a deep surge of gratitude, not just for the life he's built, but for the person he's become, a man who's learned that perfection is way overrated. Vulnerability is a superpower, and the most important connections often happen when you least expect it. He thinks of all the flights happening right now, full of strangers unaware they're sitting next to future best friends, life partners, chosen family members. Everyone's scared to show who they really are. Kids learn to hide their feelings. Parents think strength means never letting anyone see you struggle. If he could send them a message, it would be this: your broken places are not something to be ashamed of. They're not flaws to hide or problems to fix. They're exactly where the light can shine, where connection happens, where love grows. And in the ballroom 3 hours later, Andrew is about to discover that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is not have all the answers. That means admitting you've been asking the wrong questions all along. Sometimes the greatest leadership isn't showing people how strong you are, but showing them it's safe to be vulnerable too. This story reminds us that no amount of success can replace the quiet, unspoken bond between a parent and a child. Through Andrew's journey, we see how even the most structured lives can unravel when faced with raw, unexpected truths, and how healing often begins with a single act of vulnerability. Daisy didn't need a perfect father. She needed a present one. If this story touched your heart, consider sending some love to Andrew, whether through your thoughts, prayers, or simply believing in second chances. He took the first brave step by listening. Now it's up to him to keep showing up, not just as a CEO, but as the kind of father Daisy will always remember. What do you think Andrew should do next? Leave a comment and share your thoughts. And if stories like this resonate with you, stories that explore the depth of human connection, redemption, and the power of choosing love, make sure to subscribe to Touching Tales Hub. Your support helps us bring more heartfelt stories to life.